أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر، الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله، لا إله إلا الله. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, brothers and sisters. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يحصي نعماءه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون، الذي لا يدركه بعد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفطن، الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت معدود ولا أجل ممدود. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وبارك على محمد وآل محمد وترحم على محمد وآل محمد كأفضل ما صليت وباركت وترحمت على إبراهيم وآل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد فعال لما تريد. عباد الله، أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله عز وجل واتباع أمره واجتناب نهيه. One of the spiritual vices that has been talked about by the scholars of Islam is the spiritual disease of envy. Envy has been considered to be a disease that has to be removed from the heart of a believer. And the hadiths have been quite harsh when it came to dealing with the vice of envy, the disease of spiritual envy. In a hadith, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says that the apostle of God, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, said that God Almighty addressed Prophet Moses, peace be upon him, and said, O son of Imran, never be envious of people concerning the favors I have conferred on them by my grace. Do not succumb to your envious self. Indeed, the envious man or person is indignant at the bestowal of my favor and contests my apportioning of gifts among my creatures. Whoso is such, he neither belongs to me nor do I belong to him. God is talking about giving different favors to different people. Let me define what envy is first, and then we can talk about it very briefly. Inshallah, I won't take much of your time today. The definition of envy, which in Arabic would be hasad, is a psychic state in which a person wishes for the deprivation of a blessing, talent, or merit, real or imagined, possessed by another person. It does not make any difference to the envious person whether he possesses it or not, whether he can acquire it or not. So when you're envy towards someone else, it's not that you want to have that thing only. Sometimes you just want that person to be deprived of it. You don't want that person to enjoy the thing. You see someone has a blessing, and you become envious. If you wish that that person loses that thing, and it happens a lot, especially among believers because they're prone to this. Shaitan tries to create disharmony between the believers by creating these ill diseases inside of them. Now, if you realize from the definition, it says that it's related to a blessing, a talent, or a merit. Sometimes it could be a person was given or has a very nice house that you don't have. Or a person just purchased a car that you wish you could have. Or at least that, you feel, why did he get that car? Why didn't I get it? I worked hard throughout my life. I'm also a good human being. And you start talking to yourself, trying to justify that ill feeling that you have towards the other person getting that blessing. Well, we have to understand that people are created differently with different circumstances. People have different conditions in their life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala divides things amongst people not in a socialist or communist way, where we think that everybody should have the exact same thing. But people are apportioned things according to their own capacities sometimes. Sometimes the circumstances of life that allows for one person to progress in their financial state more than the other person. It doesn't mean that they're any better than the other person. But a believer always has to understand that his or her value doesn't lie in the possessions that they have. Our value lies in the humanity that we have. Whether I own that car or not, yes, it could make my life much easier. It would be nice to have a very big or spacious house. It would be beautiful to have a very nice car. But if I cannot earn it and someone else was in a situation where they were able to earn it, I should be happy for them. Why? Because if I had gotten that car, and I worked for it, or I was given it as a gift, I would wish for other people to be happy for me as well, right? And this is what it means when the Prophet or the Imam say that we have to love for other people what we love for ourselves. Whenever I see somebody who has been given a certain type of gift, or a talent, or a merit, someone is physically more capable than I am, then if I was in that person's position, I would want people to be happy for me, right? So this is how I have to think when I'm judging other people's merits, that I should be happy for them, because if I had what they have, then I would want people to be happy for me. And if I want people to be happy for me for what I have, then I must be happy for them for what they have. This is loving for other people what you love for yourself. So going back to the definition, it could be a blessing that that person is given, it could be a talent that they have, or it could be a merit. Now, sometimes a person who possesses a certain thing, let's say they have, let's go back to the example of a car. That person who has that car, he might use that car in a way that I might not use it, right? Just because they have a car and I think that I might have a car does not mean that we're going to use it the same way. Sometimes it's a blessing for me not to have that thing. Because if I have envy towards someone who has something that I don't have, it means that I'm not at a spiritual level that makes me ready to receive certain blessings or certain things in life, because I might misuse them. If I acquire that car or that house, I might use it to show off. I might develop other spiritual diseases in my life. So sometimes the deprivation of something is not a bad thing at all. Now that doesn't mean that as believers we should always seek to be deprived of things. This isn't how we should look at life. When we deal with things in life, we always have to deal with them on a spiritual and moral basis. If I want to acquire a possession in this world, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has permitted me to do so, and has asked me to work and acquire things in this world, I have to make sure that as I'm developing financially, I should equally be developing spiritually. In fact, I should be developing spiritually faster than financially, because if we develop financially faster than spiritually, then we're going to decline the more we gain things in this world. Because with a lot of financial possessions, we develop spiritual diseases. A lot of it involves showing off, for example. Sometimes a person purchases something and begins to show off as if they got that thing from their own selves. Yes, they worked hard for it. But just as they acquired it, they could easily lose it at the same time. We have to understand that this world is not a world of eternity, and we don't have full control over everything. If we receive something, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. We wish for others to have what we have. If I advance in my life, then I should try to allow others to advance as well. A lot of people, if they begin to advance and they become wealthier, they become more animalistic towards others. They try to destroy other people who are trying to become wealthy like them. If you gain power in society, there's this documentary about dictators. I'm sure a lot of you might have watched it, of how a dictator becomes a dictator. One of the first things that dictators do is they kill all those who are close to them because they think that they're going to compete with them when it comes to power. We can see that in the examples of Saddam Hussein, Hitler, and other dictators around the world. The moment they get into power, they start killing and assassinating those people who are around them, especially family members. Because family members might be the first people that are going to try to take that power from you. So this is a human vice, it's a human trait. We gain something, and we want to deprive everyone around us from having it. A believer is not like that. A believer's compass is always towards justice. And justice means that we love for other people what we love for ourselves, that we put things where they belong. If we gain a special thing in life, we don't attribute it to our own merit. And we don't wish that other people are deprived from it. No, we wish that they have it as well. If I'm living a comfortable life, then I wish that everybody around me is able to have such a comfortable life as well. Now, if I can't practically do something to change that, then at least it's a desire that I have to have in my heart for my other believers and my other human counterparts. So this is one of the vices or spiritual diseases that has been spoken about. Now, very briefly, I'll discuss or just mention a few things that might cause envy in a person, and that person has to tackle these things to get rid of it. The first thing that they mention is enmity. A person might have an enemy, so they wish that and not a justifiable enemy. You just hate somebody because of some problem that you had with them, so you wish that they don't have an enjoyable life. A second cause is your feeling of supremacy. You feel that you're better than other people. And this causes you to be envious for others. You don't want other people to reach your rank so that you can preserve your nobility or your elevation above them. Thirdly, pride. Pride also causes an individual to be envy. And fourthly, wonder. The envious person is puzzled to see the great blessing enjoyed by the object of his envy. In the Quran, for example, it talks about when people were envying prophets. You're living amongst people, then a prophet emerges. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides that one of the people amongst you is going to be a prophet. And he didn't choose you. And the Quran talks about this. It's a human state. So for example, in one of the verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the people told the prophets, "In antum illa basharun mithluna." They used to address the prophets and say, "Oh, you're just humans like us. Why do you claim prophecy? Why do you claim that God is speaking to you? Why didn't God choose me to be spoken to?" Well, just the fact that you have that envy inside of you is a clear reason why God has not chosen you. You haven't overcome that egotistic self that you have. So a lot of the times, when we think that why don't we receive this blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, maybe because the attitude that I have towards this blessing makes me not deserving of it. That if I had received it, I would have used it for the wrong reasons and not the good reasons. Number 5, fear. A person might have fear of competition, for example. So they envy other people. You open a business, and you fear that someone else might open something similar to it, and they might deprive you from money or profit. So you envy them, and you wish that they are unable to open businesses or be successful in life just like you are. A lot of these billionaires or very rich people, what they do is they try to eliminate the ability for other smaller businesses to grow. They don't want any other competition, because anything that they gain is a loss for them. Even though they have millions of dollars, they still don't want to lose that small amount. They have that fear. You see a lot of people who have things, they begin to have this anxiety. They have to protect their belongings. They want to protect their property. The richer they become, the more they possess, they have fear of losing it. Instead of wanting to share it because of their attitude, the way they behave, they have that fear. So these are a few reasons that cause envy in a person. And a person who wants to relieve themselves of this vice have to tackle these things individually. Now, in the hadith, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says that envy the Imam says, Al-hasadu ya'kulu al-iman kama ta'kulu al-naru al-hatab. That envy eats up faith just like fire eats up the wood. This is how destructive envy is when it comes to the faith and the soul of the individual. It's a very, very bad vice to have. One of the ways of trying to resolve the problem of envy, given by a scholar who wrote about morality and ethics, he says that if you feel that you have envy towards an individual, someone that you think is better than you, and you're unable to accept that, you have an ill feeling towards them, whether it's a talent or they possess something, then try to be extra kind to that individual. And one thing that our spiritual scholars emphasize on is that you don't always have to be real when you're fixing your spiritual problems. At the beginning, because you have an ill nature or you have a spiritual disease, and you acknowledge that, you're going to have to understand that when I'm dealing with these other people, I'm going to have an artificial type of behavior. It's not going to be real. So when I'm going to be kind to someone, at the beginning, it's not going to be real. It's going to be artificial. Now, you're going to start getting some waswas, satanic thoughts, telling you that because it's artificial, you shouldn't be doing it. You see, you can't be real about this. Just forget about it. You're not going to fix your problem. But don't listen to that. Once you begin to change, it has to be artificial, because that's the opposite of your nature. Don't expect it to be real. But slowly, the more you do it, the more you practice it, the more kind you are to people artificially, the more it will begin to develop as something that's real. It takes time. Change in the human being requires time. It's not something that happens instantaneously. The same thing when it comes to crying, for example, when it comes to worship. We have in our hadith, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says those who cry for Imam Hussein alayhi salam or act as if they're crying will be rewarded. Why does he also mention act? Because some people, they're unable to release tears from their eyes. Whether it's because they're shy or because of the stiffness of their heart, they don't have that emotional purity or clarity in their heart that allows for them to feel sadness and grief. But if you start artificially trying to cry, then you slowly begin developing that ability. You have to practice it artificially at the beginning. And then slowly it will start to improve. So if you envy an individual, then try to be nice to those people. Try to think about how if you had that thing, then you want other people to be happy for you. Try to be more compassionate with other people. So this is one way we can try to amend this. And it applies for every other spiritual disease that we have. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove envy from our hearts and to allow us to understand that all the blessings in reality come from Him. And we ask Him to give us what is good for us. Sometimes if I receive something that I think is good for me, it might harm me. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep those things that are harmful to us away from us. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الأول بلا أول كان قبله والآخر بلا آخر يكون بعده الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون اللهم صل على محمد خاتم النبيين وسيد المرسلين وصل يا ربي على علي أمير المؤمنين وعلى فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين وعلى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة أجمعين اللهم صل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة القائم المهدي عجل الله تعالى فرجه وسهل مخرجه وجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والذابين عنه. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. As everybody knows from the believers, the situation in the Middle East and specifically Palestine has not improved much. And I'm going to speak just about general things today without going to specifics, inshallah. And very briefly so that I don't take much of your time. I know a lot of you have to go back to work today. But I watched a video the other day. Somebody showed me a video of a Palestinian activist. I believe she's in the West. And she was criticizing a lot of the movements that came out in support of the Palestinian cause. And her argument was that the Palestinian voice is the one that has to determine everything that occurs in the situation. Other people should not be calling for things that they think are right. And unfortunately, she has, I think, a series of videos that she released, and she was very angry in these videos. And I understand the pain that this individual has, of course. But it made a lot of these activists from the Jewish organizations and other organizations to kind of back off. And they released videos as well, apologizing for not putting the Palestinian voice at the forefront and for allowing themselves to take that place. And we see that there's a lot of these movements that are fearing protesting or organizing certain types of protest or objections because of this idea. Now, this idea of having a localized narrative, it's a very modern idea, a contemporary one. And we see it developing in certain political circles. The idea is that we cannot have a grand narrative. We always have to have a localized one. And what it seeks to do is it seeks to empower the minority voices. So for example, if I belong to a minority group, then I have to allow that minority group to talk about their narrative from their perspective. Me, someone who, let's say, is privileged, should not be the one who speaks about the suffering of other people, even though it might be just. So the injustice that happened to the Native Americans, we shouldn't allow the non-natives to speak on their behalf. This is what this idea is talking about. The African American community, we have to allow them to be the ones that speak about their injustice instead of us creating the narrative for them. And in some aspects, there's truth in this. In some aspects, it's a good thing. Because yes, if you're not the one who's suffering and it's not your community who's suffering, then the demands that you're asking for, or the narrative that you're creating about these people, might be overlooking certain types of suffering that these individuals are going through. It's true. But it's not possible to expect everybody else to become silent, especially at a time when people are beginning to become awakened about the suffering of a group of people. Yes, they're going to make mistakes. Yes, they're not going to understand what's really going on. It's true. For the longest time in history, this group of people in Palestine have been killed and bombed. They live in very brutal conditions. And for the most part of the world, nobody was even aware of their suffering. If you watch a lot of the videos that go online right now, a lot of the podcasts that are happening, a lot of the voices that are coming out, and you read the comments, a lot of people, especially here in the US, say this is the first time we ever hear that the Palestinians have been going through these challenges and difficulties. And it's true. For the past 75 years, their voice has hardly been heard. They've always been shown as animals, and that they are the ones who are oppressing other people. Now, I'm not here to talk about details and the history of the whole conflict, what happened, and there's a lot of things that a person can be talking about. But to come and criticize other people for standing with you, I don't think it's the right time to do that. Now, unfortunately, a lot of times people get together from different factions to support one cause, one common cause. And it's obvious that there's going to be conflicts in the way we look at this situation. Some people might see that this is a Palestinian cause. Other people might see that this is a human cause. This is injustice that's happening, whether it's happening to Palestinians, whether it's happening to people in Pakistan and they're Muslims that are oppressing other Muslims, whether it's happening in the West over here, in the US, when certain minorities are not given a proper treatment in certain cities. This is a case of injustice. And at least we can agree to speak about that aspect of things. Now, we can respect the other opinion and say, okay, I'm going to fight for the general title, which is called oppression. And this is why Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, when Imam Ali alayhi salam, in the letter he sent to Malik al-Ashtar, he said that كونوا للظالم خصما وللمظلوم عونا. Be an enemy to the oppressor and a supporter of the oppressed. The Imam gave a very general title here. He says the oppressed. He didn't say the locally oppressed one or the minority that lives in your city. Or because these things, if you get too much into the nuances, then you're going to have differences and fights, and then you will never be able to advance your cause. You have to all agree to a general theme that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to support that transcends our limitations. When we talk about injustice occurring, then injustice could occur to any person in this world, on any level, whether it's a political level, or it goes down to a local level or even a family level. A child may be oppressed in a family, just like a citizen may be oppressed in a country, and a nation could be oppressed as well. If we use that title of oppression to be the thing that unites us to fight against that, then that's at least what we have to work towards. Now, the details of everything that follows, every community should be able to have the right to express what they want based on their desire. This is something that's acceptable, and we have to support that as well. I shouldn't be the one creating narratives and solutions for other people that I'm not directly involved with. But I shouldn't dismiss the effort of other people who are supporting the cause on a certain degree or certain level. So we have to be able to differentiate between these two. If I see something wrong, I will stand against it, and I will try to reestablish justice. But that doesn't allow me, because I did that, to come and dictate to the ones who were oppressed what to do and how to live their lives. They might also require some time to develop, to relax, to think about things. They might not have been given the opportunity for many years to develop some theory of how to live the best life. So that when they're given justice, they might fail once, they might fail twice. That still doesn't give me the right to come and dictate upon them what they should do. They should have their own learning and development happen. They were deprived from that ability for many, many years. So they're going to make mistakes. They're going to fail many times. I have to be a supportive person. I should allow them, if they fail, then to help them stand up on their feet again, but let them learn how to walk. I shouldn't be the one trying to walk them. Unfortunately, some people who want to help people that are oppressed believe that just because I help them, then I have the right to dictate for them or to them how to live their lives. So these are just a few thoughts that we should maybe think about and try to understand that the Islamic message transcends these limitations. It tries to go beyond the individual and to focus on the more divine cause. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow the believers and human beings in totality, to unite with one another, to remove the injustices that are practiced upon each other, whether it's between the Muslims or the non-Muslims. At the end of the day, we are all the creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We all belong to Him. We've been created by Him. And we should respect that this humanity comes from the divine. What we do not respect or do not tolerate is when wrongness is occurring between them. What if someone belongs to a different faith or belongs to a different belief system or doesn't believe at all? It doesn't give me any right to practice oppression or injustice towards that individual. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to elevate us beyond our limitations and allow for peace and harmony to spread amongst human beings. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.